with the time coming up to 1:35 in the morning. It's almost time for us to mosey on up to bed here on BBC Two, but before we do, Dr. Macclevoid's here with the movies. Tonight, the sun's going out and only the luminous Ryan Gosling and a spider made of rock can stop it. But given the state of the world, would it be so bad if they failed? Welcome to a far out Macclevoid at the movies. You know, it's impossible to imagine going out into space and orbiting a faraway body, but Project Hail Mary, which is sort of 2010 with all the political intrigue stripped out, crossbred with Flight of the Navigator, begs our indulgence, and we're prepared to give it because it's a pretty cheerful, pretty charming movie, all told. Ryan Gosling, who else, plays a disgraced biologist, which usually means he's a eugenicist, but in this case it just means that he came up with a theory that life could exist without water, and he was excommunicated for that stupid idea. He's teaching middle grade science to a bunch of precocious kids who don't believe him when he says that the dimming sun will shorten their already short lives. The government, based on his bullshit thesis, recruit him to the titular project. He ends up being one of 3 astronauts sent up to the Talseti system to find out why it alone is not dimming when every other star in the galaxy is going out. He awakes with no memory of the mission, which could be problematic in a movie like this, and the discovery that he is the only survivor. But nobody stays alone in space in a family movie for long, and he's soon joined by an alien, a spider-like alien made of rock, which he calls Rocky, because like Sylvester Stallone, it can't form proper English sentences.
Adrian always tells the truth.
Together, they science the mystery. The Project Hail Mary is based on a book, as you will know, by friend of Alex Kurtzman, Andy Weir, and this is a retooled and slightly dumbed down version of his novel. The novel's very geeky, very science heavy, and Hollywood have calculated that you, the dumb masses, won't really enjoy a lot of techno babble and talk. And what are they talking about? All of this sciencey stuff. We're here to be entertained in a sort of mawkish kind of way, and that's the movie that you get. Something that delicately balances scientific curiosity with sentiment. Sometimes cloying sentiment. But it's all handled in a very flippant way. It's a glib movie. It's a movie played for yucks, if you like, and consequently, we're always smirking, if not laughing out loud, because there's no wit in the movie per se. But we're always sort of chuckling away in the background, and sometimes crying. Sometimes tears fall down the cheeks because it's going for that. It's going for the big emotions, those big emotional beats, those scenes where you say, no, I hope nothing happens to Rocky, the spider-like creature made of rock. It's crowd-pleasing sentiment, yes. Ryan Gosling, of course, is the nicest, most benign representative humanity could possibly have, and therefore, one could argue, perhaps the least interesting. The third act twist, and I'm assuming that you've either seen the movie or don't wish to see it, in which case what I say will either be a spoiler or vital information required to contextualise the film for you. The third act twist is he's garless. He didn't want to go on the mission. He wasn't even one of the standbys. They get killed in an accident with the incredibly volatile star-eating material that they're using to power the mission, astrophage. And as a consequence, Ryan's got 3 hours to decide whether or not he is going to fill in, being the only person qualified. It's never a good idea to put your backups and your astronauts in the same room, just in case. Particularly if the fate of the planet is at stake. I'm just saying, I'm not a NASA health and safety person, but it was an avoidable mistake, I think. Anyway, regardless, like you and I, because isn't he so relatable, Ryan Gosling? He's just like one of us, isn't he? Except handsome and wealthy. He says no. I don't want to do it. I don't want to go. I can't go. I know it means the planet will die, and I'll die, and all the kids I taught will die. But we're all going to die anyway, aren't we? And I can't go out into deep space. I can't, you know. So they don't take no for an answer. They Shanghai the guy. They drug him and they stick him on the ship and they blast him out into space. Now, what does this mean for the movie? Well, this is kept back, but it's foregrounded with a lot of talk about bravery. You know, he asked one of the astronauts who doesn't make the long journey, how can you be brave? I'm not brave. And the astronaut says, look, you've got bravery is about thinking about doing something for somebody else. Other people make you brave. Who are you being brave for? And that, of course, sets up Ryan making a sacrifice for Rocky in the third act. You see, it's like it was planned, wasn't it? It's like it was set out on the page or something. This adds a dimension blatantly to Gosling's character, because up to that point he's a likeable guy. I mean, a really likeable guy. Great company. If you were stuck in a space capsule and facing certain death, you'd probably want to be with Ryan Gosling. But up to that point, he's just a sort of, he's just nice. That's his character. He's nice and clever. We know he's clever because, like me, he wears glasses, which is the universally recognised symbol of intelligence. Now, the plot device of him losing his memory, one could argue, is a bit hokey. Yes? It's never explained, really, why this should be. I mean, he's put into an induced coma. We infer that it's a form of brain damage or something like that causes his short-term memory to lapse. But it doesn't remove his scientific knowledge. He doesn't wake up saying, where am I? What am I? What are these things in front of me? What's this device that talks back to me? No, he knows he's still got, the doctorate in his brain, which is fortunate, isn't it? Because if he had no scientific knowledge, then the story would be dead on arrival, stillborn. So you can remember that, but you can't remember who he was. And this, of course, is a device so we can learn his backstory in a series of flashbacks, And that's a pretty good way to tell the story, I think. But did he need to lose his memory for us to learn his background in a series of flashbacks? Not really. I mean, the character's on his own. He's got nobody to tell his story to. When Rocky shows up, Rocky, they've got other bigger fish to fry. And there is a convenient reluctance on Gosling's part to talk about himself in any great depth in a sort of biographical sense. He even, for plot purposes, withholds the fact that he doesn't have enough fuel to return home, that it's essentially a one-way mission. If he'd mentioned that earlier in the movie, I suppose there'd be no sort of gushing moment where Rocky says, "Hey, I've got extra fuel. I can save Grace. I can save Ryan Gosling." You wouldn't have that moment. It's convenient though, isn't it? For me, the memory loss doesn't really add anything to the story, beyond bypassing the problem of a sort of reluctant Grace waking up to find out he's been imprisoned on a space mission. What would that version have looked like? You know, would a more complex character be born, considering that, you know, the human race had stolen what remained of his life, forced him to go off into deep space and do this thing? The memory loss also means he doesn't grieve for his astronaut colleagues, and that sidesteps, of course, emotional turmoil. In fact, the whole story, both Weir's and Chris Lord and Phil Miller's version, seems tooled to kind of prevent the main character having to wrestle with anything that shifts focus away from the core mission at hand. You don't want him to be traumatized. You don't want him to be grief-stricken. And you don't want him to be a bastard. That's very important. Because we've got to like him. Because it's a family movie. He and Rocky have got to talk to one another and banter and things. And how could we love a man who's bitter and deranged? They stole my life! They stole my life! Bastards! Well, they're going to pay. I'm not going to save any of them. I'm not going to save a single... I'm going to turn this ship around and find the nearest planet, and I'm going to settle on it and hope that it's a planet of Amazonian and space women, and I'm going to settle there, and the Earth can die. That'll teach them. That'll teach them to drug me and stick me in a space capsule and blow me out into deep space, won't it? That'll show them. That'd be in a different movie, wouldn't it? But there's no room for moral ambiguity, no room for psychological complexity in a movie like Project Hail Mary. It's meat and potatoes. It's a Sunday roast. It's basic, really. For all the talk of stars and cells and sciencey things, really, it's just a very simple piece of family entertainment. Anything that gets in the way of it not being a simple piece of family entertainment, a 4-quadrant friendly blockbuster, is out! Goodbye! So a film for adults, yes, but only undemanding adults. The movies aren't here to challenge you anymore, kids. What do you want? Art? You don't get art now. You get entertainment. You'll be bloody grateful for it. Some will say this is superior entertainment. I would agree with that assessment, in that there's nothing in it that could possibly really offend anybody, and therefore it's for everyone. But of course, the more a movie is for everyone, the less distinctive, the less layered, the less interesting it becomes. You, yes you, the humble viewer, have to decide, is that what I want? You know, Project Hail Mary doesn't have any political messaging in it. It's not woke, to coin that dreadful overused phrase. It's just old-fashioned. Capra-esque, even, maybe, though Capra's characters had more dimensionality than any here. But it's that sort of wide-eyed, big-hearted kind of film. It's a film designed to make people cry and people smile. Maybe that's enough. Maybe it's not enough. I was thinking recently, you know, The anniversary of Star Wars is coming up in 2027, but so too the anniversary of William Friedkin's Sorcerer, which was released on the same week back in 1977. No one went to see Sorcerer. The world went to see Star Wars. One of cinema's great counterfactuals is, what would have happened if it was the other way around? What if they'd gone for, the moody, brooding art piece instead of the childlike entertainment? What would movies be like now? Would we be watching the likes of Project Hail Mary? I feel sure we would not. That'd be a bad thing. I don't know, I only ask the questions. It's a nice enough film. Rocky's cute. He's a cute companion. He's the sort of a mix of the robot Max from Space Camp with the alien from Flight of the Navigator. He's also a family film cliche. He's the adorable alien that speaks in pidgin English. He's endearingly naive, a bit awkward, perhaps a bit like yourself. Was there a reason that his race couldn't speak fluent English when they met Ryan Gosling? I mean, couldn't he download the OED and just sort of translate it? I mean, the Iridians are geniuses. They've built a ship of much greater size than Ryan Gosling's. They've put Rocky out into space. He can do that. He can travel to a faraway star in the hope of saving their planet. But he can't string a sentence together. He says question when asking a question, statement when asking. It's all for fun, of course. Amaze, amaze, amaze. Thumb down instead of thumb up. How we laugh. We laugh, don't we? Well, some people did. I didn't, but some did. But why can't he speak like the brain gremlin from Gremlins? And wouldn't that have been more interesting? Imagine a sort of haughty, erudite alien that patronised Ryan Gosling all the time, made him feel stupid, and questioned his moral choices. Grace, tell me about your life up to now. Really, you did that? How dreadful! That'd be a different movie, wouldn't it? Maybe a more interesting movie, as I said. But that'd be a risk! Because some people wouldn't like it. You wouldn't like it, would you? You liked Rocky the way he was when he was ambling up to Ryan Gosling. Rocky and Grace be friends. That's what you want to see. That's what you got. Rocky is a kid's fantasy. It's the kind of alien friend that every child wants, and Grace is the kind of adult friend every kid wants. I think. Yes, let's say that. Project Hail Mary is a beautiful looking film. It has great visual effects and some really good practical effects too. I like the fact that everything is real. There's real sets there, and that adds to that sense of realism, that world. It costs more money, but it pays off in terms of what we see on the screen. But it is self-indulgently paced. It's too long. If Lord and Miller thought the audience needed to drink in every beat, every detail, every emotional scene, well, some people will say, yes, I loved it just as it was. I personally thought it could do with a bit of a trim. You could cut half an hour out of this flick, no problem, tell exactly the same story, and I think it'd be more satisfying. Remember, the average length of a movie in 1985 was 1 hour and 40 minutes. Back to the Future, remember that? Great movie. 1 hour and 40 minutes. Approx. It's the kind of golden length, you get in, you tell your story, and you get out. Does the scene in which, Gosling meets Rocky have to be 15 minutes long? A little trim, because if this was 2010, the aforementioned 2010, yes, that sort of pacing works in a movie that's kind of philosophical and introspective and ponderous. A movie that strokes its chin and sucks on its pipe. But this isn't that movie, is it? It's a family entertainment. And considering how much of it is aimed at children, I thought it was odd that it ran to 2 hours and 36 minutes. Yes, that's right. It's bloody long. It was so long that I missed the first 2 minutes of my acro aerobics class directly afterwards. And I'm not going to sue Amazon Studios for that, but I put them on notice that if it happens again, I won't be happy. In conclusion then, yes, I'm coming to the end now. Project Hail Mary is a lovely film. It's gently humorous, it's life-affirming, it's poignant in places. It's a story about finding your place in the universe against all the odds and achieving great things. And sciencing the solution, like Star Trek, old Star Trek, which informed it. It is competence porn. It's about working together to solve problems for the greater good, putting humanity on that positive, optimistic track that we all hope and believe it can go on. In some respects, it's a bit like the science fiction version of Rocky, which is appropriate because Rocky is a spiritual presence in the film. I don't mean the alien, I mean Balboa. You'd have, realised that already if you've been paying attention. But one also has to say it is a safe story. It doesn't take any risks with character or plot. The biggest risk is making Ryan Gosling's character a coward, but it's no real risk because he is later redeemed. He redeems himself and he is incredibly brave by the end. So, that kind of cancels that out. It's an arc, sure, but it's not character complexity, really. You're left with a conclusion that this was a novel written perhaps to become a movie like this one, a sort of big budget, old school blockbuster, minus the economic running time. And perhaps there's the irony. It's a story about man taking the most extraordinary risk to save mankind, but it's a very safe movie indeed. Until next time, I'm Dr. Macclevoid, and it's not my real name. Goodbye.
Except for my kid being born. This is the greatest night in the history of my life. I just want to say one thing to my wife who's home. Yo, Adrian!